New Saga, episode 3. So we have Kyle, and he's talking to the Great Spirit, and he just kind of like decides to like skip the tutorial and introduction parts because he already knows who it is. So he kind of just was like, okay, well, we can skip that. You'll find out eventually who I am after I pull out the sword. And so once he pulls out the sword, the Great Spirit realizes, oh, you're actually from another world, or like you have been brought back from the future. Interesting. And I love that one of the things that the Great Spirit tells everybody after they appeared is that he he was testing them to see if like the greed would overcome them, but based on like basically what Kyle did, and based on the fact that no one else aside from their own kind of was after the gold, or like they didn't really show that much greed once they found all the gold, that she was going to allow them to have everything that was in there without sinking them deep in into the pit into the depths of despair. But yeah, they they re- they kind of make it out, and Kyle kind of makes sure the spirit doesn't really tell his crew anything about his past, or like his future self. And yeah, so they finally decide to go to town, and they're like, okay, we're gonna stock up on supplies now that we got all this money. And they go to this armor shop, and instantly right off the bat, the spirit recognizes the work of Melenis, which is probably somebody that was around her time period during when they were really building these technologies that are now used today. And it was like, well, she tried to talk to him like she knew him, and Kyle was like, oh, don't worry, she just has like a very wild imagination, or like a very childlike imagination. So this is so Kyle kind of gets this armor that's like really expensive, and he tells everybody, all right, well, everybody, you get whatever you want, whatever you need. I'll pay it forward. So everybody just like kind of picks out their best. Like the at least it kind of gets gauntlets. uh Urza gets bracelets for her magic, and Theron just gets a whatever he needs as well. And of course, we keep seeing Kyle kind of ask a lot of questions about like stones, and if they have any, and they do bring out like a certain type of stone called like the Blister Stone, which is going to be useful for later on, but it was very expensive. And Kyle's just like, oh well, we'll take all you have, and also all your potions. So Kyle and the group just kind of ransack the place. So I like that this is not like you see that based on Kyle's experiences from his future past. He knows the ins and outs of what he needs. He seems a very reliable and capable leader now. Obviously, due to the fact that he right now he has more experience than he did when he started. And yeah, it's just surprising seeing this random ass people just show up to this well known shop and just like ransack everything, get everything they need. And everybody just kind of goes and does their own thing because they're gonna be moving on after this day. And this gives Kyle an opportunity to talk to the spirit and get certain questions answered that he wants to ask. And he pretty much asks him about like, is it possible to change the future? And the spirit is just like, well, the future's not set in stone, but like in your case it's a whole lot different. Where she brings up how there's certain points and certain timelines that are flowing, and that possibly this because the future technically in here hasn't happened. That timeline doesn't yet exist. So this is a completely separate parallel line that Kyle is in. But one of the most interesting parts is that Kyle was brought back with the dragon's heart, but his soul kind of fused with his current self, which technically shouldn't be, because it should be like two separate souls, uh, separated. And it's really interesting for me because it just really they dive into like this thing called like fusion spell, which is like a combination of souls in order to enhance magic power. Which in this episode we find out that everybody's magic power is set in stone the moment they're born, but there was like a time period when people were trying this fusion spell or trying to create a more powerful people. They even did some like experiments that were like kind of inhumane with like babies and infants, and it just didn't work out for them. So it's really interesting seeing this is because obviously we know the demons are in this world and that the humans are in constant fear of having to battle them, or they've and we know that Kyle is gonna future eventually 3 years from now is gonna involve the demons invading this place. We there's like a lot of history in this anime, which is really interesting, and a lot of lore. Uh, so Kyle wants to ask if what's gonna happen to him in the future, and that's like the interesting part, which is like the Chris was like, well, I don't know. This is like unprecedented, even for my time or for anybody to really know what's gonna happen to you. So yeah, we have then we have everybody just kind of laying in for the night, trying to gaze upon. And Ursa's like, "Well, there's this shiny moon. I love to bathe in the moonlight," which, interesting enough, maybe it's something like the elves do, where like they replenish mana through looking at the moon. Or we definitely know that their magic enhances once they're looking at the moon. So the moon's already having like a pivotal importance, whereas like the moon has it's almost like in any anime, like the moon is always emphasized as like a magic source or like a way to increase magic tenfold. And then Ursa remembers, oh shoot, I have to go do the contract with Kyle, which when she gets there, Kyle kind of tries to play it off, and I was like, I'm already tired. Why don't we just call it a night and do it another time? And she's like, nope. Well, this is not. Well, you don't find a lot of importance in this. I do find importance in this. This is my name. Like, I don't want you to misuse it. The sooner we do it, the better. And once they start doing the contract sealing and stuff, uh, Kyle, after they're finishing the contract ritual, Kyle just goes in and kisses her and is like, well, isn't that how we're supposed to seal the deal? And she's like, no, that's usually done after weddings. Which, interesting enough, we know Ursa feels kind of like calm with Kyle around. Like she doesn't mind that. Well, at least now she doesn't mind that he knows his name, especially now with the contract ritual. But this this is one of the things where she kind of let her guard down a bit, and uh, she felt like Kyle kind of took advantage of that and went for it. Uh, Really interesting stuff. Just burns him to a crisp later with a spell, because obviously with the moonlight and the magic finally being at its peak, she was able to cast a burning spell, and everybody's like noticing on their way to the next town, like, hey Kyle, you kind of smell like you're burning. It's like, this is just an incident, don't worry about it. And Ursa's like, yeah, don't worry about it. But Elise is kind of like there, like looking at him, like she obviously, I think she notices that there's something going on with Kyle and her, or that she definitely is starting to see through Kyle's lies a bit, because uh, you can only keep fainting that you don't know certain things for so long, or like it eventually is gonna catch up. I think eventually Kyle's gonna have to come forward and let him know, listen, I'm not the Kyle you know. I actually come from the future. I'm inhabiting my current self, and this is why I'm so strong. And they finally meet. Uh, well, they finally go into a town and they get to see the princess finally arrive, and it's really interesting because the way it was played out, it almost seemed like the princess was too kind, and it definitely felt to me that she was probably going to be underhanded and do some shady stuff and just put on a show or a facade for the crowd and be a kind-hearted princess. But no, in actuality, that's not why Kyle was looking at her a certain way. It was because we find out that 3 days from where they're at now, she's gonna get attacked and uh get killed by a hydra of sorts. And it's really interesting because Kyle goes into how in the future this was deemed like a plotted assassination, and but eventually it like faded away because there was no like actual like hard proven evidence towards it. But uh the reason this brings the reason why they're there, Kyle wants to use this opportunity that the prince is going to be in dire need of saving to boost up his reputation as a hero and really set himself into the path of everybody considering him a hero. So now we have Kyle going back to what he said in previous episodes, where he was like, a hero needs money, reputation, and luck. So he is kind of creating his own luck and kind of creating he knows a situation is going to happen, and because of his memories of the future, he's making well use of that, which he did say he was going to use any means necessary to accomplish the goal to become a hero. So I'm really liking this anime. It's really interesting. I can't wait for next week. But oh yeah, rating it a 7 out of 10 for this week. But that's all the anime I want to talk about today. So if you would be so kind to like, comment, subscribe, hit the noti bell, all that fun stuff. Until next time, bye.